boys adopted more or less during the war. I don't have to tell you I'm not much of a vocalist, but I'll do the best I can with it. So we'll just imagine for the moment we're back in 1917 and the orders from the front. Forward march, Doctor. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling, you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, don't delay, go today. Your daddy to a sad, tell your sweet not to pine, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, send the word over there. That the Yanks sound, the ark, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
All right. Good evening, everyone out there in YouTube land. It seems as if the streams are streaming, the tube is tubing, and the you is you out there, you the viewer. Thank you very much for tuning in to tonight's episode of the Fierce Brood. I am Matt Yancic, the founder and head game master of Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain. Right now I'm realizing actually that I should have moved. Here's what's really funny is we're doing this through Zoom. And so what I always forget week in and week out is to take the Zoom chat window because I'm screen capping the Zoom window, take it from over here and then put it like on this screen over here so I can actually see it. And I just see it like lighting up with all kinds of goofy comments and I can't read any of them. I'll have to do that at break or at some other point. But anyway, we are here for you, the viewer, tonight. Welcome to episode 10 of The Fierce Brood. We are an actual play of historic fiction. And in each episode, we blend actual locations, events, and historic figures from Boston of 1918 with a fictional story and fictional characters of our own creation. And Jared is laughing at jokes that I just can't see. It looks like our chat is filling up at this point.
Is great.
So for those of you that are, maybe I'm just going to drag that thing at a certain point. Now that our viewers know what's going on, I should just drag it over and not worry about it.
It gets its own window.
Yes, it does.
Panel.
It does. It should get right. I think I'll replace one of you with the chat window. So those that watch and listen carefully might notice quite a few historic Easter eggs planted throughout our story. So if you do notice any of those Easter eggs, don't be afraid to speak up in the chat. When you do, it's all part of the fun. So as always, I am joined by my trusted band of brothers, guys that I've been playing with for over 30 years since high school. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about the character that you're going to be playing tonight?
Sure thing. So I'm Steve, and I'm portraying Ezekiel Z. Brewster, an exiled adept in game terms. Basically, he is a seminarian studying at St. John's Seminary in I believe it's Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, but
yeah,
near Boston.
Yeah.
And he actually comes from a very prominent Boston Brahmin family, and due to some circumstances, was kicked out of that life and finds himself in the seminary, and now finds himself on taking a sabbatical to deal with what's going on in this game. So
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve. And how about Jared? Can you tell us a little bit about your character for tonight?
Sure, I'm playing Thomas Brandon Dietrich, usually goes by TBD. He is a graceful explorer who learns quickly. He spent his whole career so far as a field scientist, and has recently now accepted a new position at Harvard Medical School. Not the position he thought he was going to get, but here he is now trying to be involved in this whole Vagafer experience. He's very excited about the loot drop from last episode.
Oh, yeah. We'll get a little bit more into that later tonight. But yes, there was a nice loot drop at the end of last episode. A very interesting one. And next up, we have James playing Vesper. Can you tell us about Vesper?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm James, and Vesper is a music composer turned con man. Well, maybe not turned, but music composer slash con man. A skeptical speaker who keeps a magic ally, who is along for the ride, doesn't really have a lot of places to go, but this is the best crew to be experiencing this shared delusion we're all a part of.
And who is your magic ally?
That's Mars, a little cat, black cat.
Mars the
who
cat.
appears when it's convenient or when she's got things to do, and is a great little ally.
Cool. Thank you very much, James. And last but not least, we have Frank. Frank, can you tell us a little bit about Murphy?
Yep, I am playing Francis Murphy. You can call me Murph. I am a resilient warrior, aka former police officer, aka former night watchman. The events of the last 9 episodes have left me a bit of a derelict. And the only worry is that I don't have steady income with which to spend on food. My character has been seen to have a bit of an appetite, and it almost appears like he's growing a little bit. He certainly appears more solid, and there's a bit of tight strain on the buttons of his clothing.
Yeah, I've noticed his gravitational pull has increased.
How many days into this are we? That
I know. We're in game, like in real time, we're like 10 weeks into this. In game time, we're about 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. Well, we'll find out more about Murphy's appetite a little bit later. But for now, let's recap what we've had happening in the last 9 episodes. So in prior episodes of the Fierce Brood, our 4 heroes, each secretly harboring their own unique supernatural abilities, found themselves thrust into an interdimensional conflict so enormous it made the Great War raging across the planet Earth, the so-called war to end all wars, pale by comparison. They have discovered, it seems, that there are dimensions within dimensions, and that we on Earth are not alone. There is a place, a kind of nexus for all times and all places, called the Ring Realms of Vagaver, where all things meet. And within this other dimension, within dimensions, exists a mysterious, shadowy, and otherworldly parallel version of Boston called Tremontaine, a dark city situated on, of all things, a giant leaf of an enormous world vine called Vatten. Wedged directly in the middle of the interdimensional conflict on the Ring Realms of Vagaver, our heroes become aware of at least 2 sides. On the one, they found the Watch and Ward Society, a group masquerading as an organization of concerned citizens and do-gooders, dedicated to the elimination of harmful and sinful vices throughout all of New England. Using vice laws to their advantage, the Watch and Ward Society has, over the decades, encouraged the banning of books, theatrical presentations, and other forms of entertainment that they deemed sinful, giving rise to the infamous slogan, "Banned in Boston." While the members of Watch and Ward claim only to promote strong morals and good character, in actuality they are an interdimensional organization rooted in Vagaver, with much darker and far more sinister intentions. Our heroes have already had several encounters with one of their agents, one Harold Coatsworth III, who is now in hiding somewhere on Earth where he plots and schemes. What his and Watch and Ward Society's intentions are, however, still remain a mystery. On the other hand, however, our heroes have found and temporarily affiliated themselves with the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities, a group that is at least partially run by Mark Twain and a few other classic authors who should actually be dead. Disguised as a historical organization dedicated to the care and preservation of things of value to New England history, the interdimensional NESPA has so far shown themselves to be noble, honest, and forthright. So far. Focusing themselves on keeping the Watch and Ward Society at bay, the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities has tasked our heroes with finding Harold Coatsworth III, who is now in hiding, plotting and scheming. It might not be that easy, however, because our heroes aren't quite sure exactly where he is. Boston or Earth, Tremontaine or Vagaver, or somewhere between. They needn't necessarily kill Coatsworth, but should at least alert agents within the society so that they might handle him. Adding pressure to this hunt, however, it seems that today, November 11th of 1918, an armistice has been signed across the ocean. Enemy forces here on Earth, commanded, controlled, and tricked by forces in Vagaver, are surrendering. The battle is over, but not the interdimensional war. The four agree, for a price, each asking to be properly outfitted to aid in their mission. Dr. Farley of Harvard agrees, and with that, they each go their separate ways to tie up loose ends. Z goes back to St. John's Seminary, where he confesses what has happened to his Monsignor and the Vice Rector. Vesper first visits the Boston Symphony, where he encounters Zeitweber, a member of the Clockmakers Union, who issues him a citation for unlicensed movement between dimensions. Murphy heads back to the halfway house where he had been staying, only to find his roommate with les grippes, as the French say. Finally, and most troublingly, when T.B. Dietrich enters his brownstone home, not only does he find his roommate with les grippes, but he is also attacked by a pair of skin dogs, wearing the skin of Reginald Winthrop, a Harvard grad student. Narrowly escaping his predicament, Dietrich kills one of the skin dogs in his living room as the other escapes into the streets of Boston. When Z, Vesper, Murphy, and Dietrich finally meet later in the day to discuss their affairs as well as their next step, each receives a mysterious crate with several items to use as they see fit. And so, Steve, what were your two items?
Well,
Steve was not expecting to be called.
No, I wasn't.
No one was.
Yeah,
right.
but in my recollection, there was a mini little octopus-like creature that we all got, and once I ingested it, it attached itself seemingly to my hearing structure, the back of my throat, and maybe linked to the brain, which we discovered that once each of us had ingested this thing, we were able to communicate in quite unlike 1918 manner, but more like modern day, communications.
Yes.
So and that was the first thing. Yeah, go ahead.
You also received.
I received, very much like Aladdin, a flying carpet.
What appears to be a flying carpet.
Which actually works very much like a flying carpet.
Seems to work and actually seems animated.
Quite sentient. Yeah.
Sentient. Yeah. Jared, how about Dietrich? What did Dietrich receive?
I received one of those octopus communicators as well. And I also received a pair of goggles that apparently let me see between the two worlds.
Yes, exactly. And Murphy, how about you? What was it that you recall receiving?
Aside from that delicious octopus, it was a...
From that calamari?
Yeah, a little undercooked. Smith & Wesson 1903 .32 caliber revolver, which my understanding was that this is a weapon that will work.
Yes.
in Vagaver.
That is what it seems. And last but not least, how about Vesper? What was it that you received, Vesper?
I got one of these disgusting octopuses as well, which I grudgingly eventually did the thing
Ingested.
with.
Yeah.
And I also got a wedge-shaped object that wanted me to put it in my eye, and I'm unwilling to do that.
Understandably so. And so, as our 4 heroes receive their items and then move out into the streets of Boston, the city awakens, but not to mourning, instead to a celebration for the signing of the armistice and the end of the Great War. And though Z and Vesper and Murphy and Dietrich should be celebrating as well, they know that the Great War was just a battle, and that the real war, the interdimensional war, is still on the horizon. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to my players who may or may not wish to ask for any sort of clarification or things that they want to sort of contradict in my summary or clarify. Gentlemen.
I believe I actually got a piece of candy instead of a wedge-shaped metal object to put in my
that you're
eye,
supposed
right?
to shove in your eye. Yeah, well,
I'm
I'll go
sorry.
back and like Warner Wolf, I'll check the videotape, but I'm not so sure
Not so sure
about that. Yeah, unfortunately, it was
fine.
a wedge-shaped object. In your favor, everyone else has been sticking things in their body and ingesting things, and they seem to be doing fine. I mean, the long-term studies are still not in, but they seem to be doing okay.
What else have people, aside from the octopus, what have people had to insert?
Well, I wanted to clarify a couple things. So first of all, there were a couple things that we kind of noticed about these objects that when you examine them, you notice them. So Dietrich, I don't know if you recall this, but do you remember taking a closer look at your goggles, what they actually look like? Any of the details on them?
The only details I remembered were the dots that when you ran your fingers over them became sticky.
Right, exactly. So that was something that you noticed on your goggles. And those dots that became sticky, what we're talking about is something that's been kind of a long-running thread through the game, and that is every so often the heroes have encountered an object that seems to have these little red dots on it, and as they pass their fingers across them, they appear to stick to the person's fingers. And I believe, if I am mistaken here, you can correct me, and if I didn't say it before, but Murphy, did you notice that about your weapon as well?
Yeah, it's on the pommel and the trigger, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact.
Yes, exactly.
How about this wedgie object?
Looking at the wedgie object, what you notice is it looks like a flat black piece of what you would call metal ordinarily, but really it's that unknown material that you've sort of been encountering numerous times in your travels between Earth and Vagaver. So taking a look at it, you don't really notice anything like that, unless you want to take a closer look, and we can see what sort of turns up.
Yeah, how
So close, you can put it in your eye. Hold it right up.
Hold it right up to your eye.
how big is this thing?
I'm going to place it at perhaps twice the length of, say, a credit card, but then maybe half the width. And it looks a bit like it's like a triangular wedge.
My eyes aren't that big.
Yeah, they're not.
All right.
It's okay. I don't mean any pressure. All I wanted to do was sort of point out some of the details that may or may not become important later on in the game. And I'm not saying that they will, and I'm not saying that they won't. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that before we kind of continue through the streets, because there was one more detail that I wanted to bring up and bring everyone's attention to. And that was that as Dietrich was placing the goggles on his face, he looked about through the city, and what he saw was a skin dog in the guise of a human soldier as an impromptu parade starts down the streets. And this soldier, this skin dog, grabs a fawning woman from the crowd and kisses her deeply on the lips. And the woman seems completely oblivious to the idea that this creature is a skin dog. But you, Dietrich, assuming you share this detail with your compatriots, you do notice
for
this.
our new subvocal communicators.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, you continue to head through the streets, unless there is something that anybody wants to do at this moment. I believe, can you tell me where you were all headed?
We were on our way to go see Dr. Farley. I think that was the plan. And then at some point we wanted to see if we could get to the evening paper to maybe put an ad in there to try to lure Coatsworth out.
Exactly. So it's up to you at this point whether you want to split up or whether you want to sort of, do things separately. Do you want to go for the ad first, or do you want to go for Dr. Farley first?
There was a time limit with this ad you were talking about, I think, right, guys?
It was the afternoon to make the evening edition.
So
I think we have time to do both. I'd rather hit Dr. Farley first.
All right.
Get more information, get his thoughts on Pantsman.
Odd piece.
So then, would you all like to head and proceed directly to Dr. Farley's office?
I'm interested in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think we should.
All right. So the four of you thread your way through the streets.
We hop on the carpet.
Well, it's up to you guys. I mean, you are carrying what appears to be a magic flying carpet around. Would you like to employ it?
I think at this time of day with a parade full of people, that might attract attention that we don't want. Just guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopping on the nearest streetcar and then riding that through downtown Boston, eventually towards the river, and then crossing the river into Cambridge, you hop off again at that same stop that you hopped off on earlier on Massachusetts Avenue, and head towards Radcliffe Quad. And as you move through the streets, it is November 11th, so it's getting very dark out at this time. It's getting close to the evening, and probably, I'm guessing, even though you haven't sort of checked it out yet, it's probably getting close to the deadline. You do eventually make it back to Dr. Farley's office, and as you approach the building, from the outside, what you see is that lots of the lights have gone off in his building. But of course, his light is still on, and he does appear to be in his office. Do you guys just want to sort of approach and go in, or are we going to take a certain kind of, I don't know, how would you like to do it?
I think we just go right in, and if we can swing by that break room and see if there's any like leftovers in there, that would be fantastic.
You could easily do that. Swinging by the break room, you do find a few teachers that are kind of burning the midnight oil, and they are bent over tables, correcting papers, drinking coffee, kind of taking care of business here late night in the evening. If you want to grab that food, you manage to, with the kind of like confused look of a few members of the faculty, you do sort of work your way in there, and you manage to grab some of the food off the table. And then I'm assuming you're going to head up to Farley's office, or are we going to go through every item on the menu?
I will grudgingly take a small amount because I don't know the next I'm going to eat, but I'm also going to help Murphy along to move quickly.
I'll just grab a few items and put them in my pockets. Let's go.
There you
Okay.
go.
So as you do so, you make your way up to the next floor where you find Dr. Farley there in his office, and he is not unlike his teaching companions. He's bent over his desk, and he's working at something that looks like he's correcting papers or something like that. And I assume someone knocks,
Sure, I'll knock.
It will not.
and he looks up, and as he does so, he looks a little startled, and he looks like he's the Dr. Farley that you were used to before. And when he notices that you're there, in a sort of bumbling way, he stands up and moves over to the window, and he drops the shades as if to get more privacy, and then urges you, please come on in. And he's bumbling here a little bit, and you can see that as he moves with his body, he's not quite comfortable in this body. He urges you to come in, and assuming you do, he closes the door behind you. So, I trust you've received your items.
I try to speak to him using the octopus.
Ah. He stops for a moment. And when you do that, he smiles. And the suit, the Dr. Farley suit that he had been wearing before, you see light begin to fold in on itself like an origami sculpture. And the suit disappears. And now you're looking at Langdon Clemens, son of Samuel and Olivia Clemens, aka Mark Twain. And this man is a different man than you knew before, and he's dropped the disguise. And this man is smiling, just as Dr. Farley was once smiling. And he nods quietly to you. And he sub-vocalizes, I see you have already adopted the communicator. And all four of you hear this in your minds, if not in your ears. It's a little bit of a confusing situation. You can't tell if you're hearing him through your ears or you're hearing him within your brain. But he has spoken
answer
to you.
out loud,
Uh-huh.
and too loud, like I'm not controlling the volume of my voice very well because of this thing. Like, yes, we have that, and what's this then? And I hold the wedge thing up to him.
He stops for a moment. Well, Vesper, it's, of course, an item that will aid you in your travels. I do understand that you had a small, shall we say, a small encounter with a member of the Clockmakers Union. Is that correct?
Indeed it is. She was rude.
What you have there is two items in one. It is a registration for travel back and forth between Vagaver by
Nice.
authorized and certified portals. And it is also a viewer to show you where those portals are, where the recorded portals are. There are, of course, more of them. I trust you've each you have each adopted your items, have you not?
We have.
But I'm sorry, you're not happy with yours, perhaps?
My adoption is rather invasive and would apparently require putting this sharp object in my eye.
That is true, but I think... How can I explain this? It's important to remember that our bodies are just a simple vessel, a temporary vessel. What really counts, what really goes on, what really burns and shines like shining stars are our souls. The pain that you might feel is momentary. But what really matters is what's in our souls. We learn to get over these things. We learn to get over the pain. Because all that really matters is the soul. If the item is not to your liking, I can give you something else, but unfortunately it must be applied in the manner with which you were instructed.
Well, very well. As soon as we are born, we're dying. I might as well take the first step towards ending myself with this. And I'm going to start easing it towards the old eye.
And it's freaky. I'm just gonna say, even though I don't want to take over and tell you how you're gonna take this, but I mean, just imagine taking a sharp wedge-shaped object with a needle point and slowly pulling it or slowly bringing it in toward your eyeball. And I'm actually gonna. I mean, I made everybody make a roll for this before. But for the octopus, but for this, based on the behavior of your character in the last episode, I would say that you're going to have to roll to really convince yourself to do this. But I mean, you can totally override me if you feel that I'm,
I will roll. I might try some, I don't know, to figure this out. But
How do you want to steel yourself to do this? What you're essentially doing is you're going to take a sharp object and you're going to, I assume, quickly.
Are you trained in courage?
I'm not just going to do it quick. I'm going to try and hold on and just do it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I'm going to rely on the fact that, like, I'm teetering on the edge of reality. Like, I'm not really feeling like this is. We're
Right.
kind of versioning on dream or some other kind of delusion that I'm under these drugs or something, and
Yeah.
this is just a trick. It's just a.
I'll ease the task by 1 for you for that. I mean, I believe that. That's something that's a good theme for your character, and you've been carrying with you through all 10 episodes. So definitely ease it for 1 for that. Anything else? Do you want to spend points on effort and?
Yeah, I'll do a level of effort. Is this what are we going under? Is this a might or an intellect?
It's totally up to you. So at this point, I'm going to explain to the audience what we're doing here. But the basic rules for Cipher System are that together the game master and the player decide on a stat such as might, speed, or intellect, what is relevant for the task. And so James has just asked me whether or not he should use might, speed, or intellect. I'm thinking in this, it could be intellect if you want to just try and get over it, but it could also be speed if you just want to get it in there. And so once we decide on that stat, then I actually have a difficulty rating in my head from 1 to 10. I multiply that by 3, and then that is the number that James has to roll on a d20. He has to equal it or beat it in order to succeed. And he can use things like what he was just talking about right now. So he was actually going to apply a level of effort. He was going to, convince himself that this is just a hallucination. And is there something else you would like to? An asset of some sort? Or, I mean, conceivably you could get help.
I'll help.
For this.
Let me put that in your eye.
No. No, I'm just gonna go with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very slow.
And I'm gonna make it look like I'm pretty brave and stalwart.
Yeah.
Grit my teeth like I'm gonna get there, but then finally at the last minute, and it shakes a little bit. I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
And do some
all right.
speed for this. So
go ahead and make your roll.
Don't miss.
A 9.
A 9. It's a fairly easy task. And what you feel is a piercing, sharp pain that is not hot, but cold. And then suddenly, your entire eye goes numb, and this wedge-shaped object just slips right out of your hands as if it were alive. And you feel something pouring itself into the orbit of your eye, whichever eye you happen to have placed it in. Your vision in that side goes blank, goes to black, and you're forced to kind of wrench yourself by grabbing onto a table, and maybe your companions try to keep you up as well. And what you feel is a sort of a cold wash through what I can only describe as your brain, as if someone had set your brain in a pool of cold water. And as you blink, the vision in that black eye, or that eye that sees nothing but black, begins to sort of fog up, and then it goes from foggy to a little bit clearer, and you're forced to blink a few times as you look around. And now what you see floating in front of you is what appears to be a very small doorway. And it's a little bit offset, off in the center of the room. And you notice that looking at the floor, there are certain tiles that you hadn't noticed before, but now that you look at them, those tiles look like they kind of line up with that doorway. Almost as if they're, well, as if they're creating that doorway. And looking around, you see far off in the distance tiny little specks of light. And you blink a few times and you almost get a close-up on them. And you realize that what you're looking at are doorways into other places, presumably Vagaver, but you're not really sure. And looking around, the entire world is now the same as it was before. The only difference is that there's that glowing doorway.
I stand agog and just am silent with my mouth hanging open. And I'm inspecting the tiles and the door and all the specks of light.
Langdon steps up to you and he places his hand on your shoulder and he moves you to the door. And he explains to you and to everybody else, you have no idea what the heck they're talking about. But he begins to explain how there are artificial doors between Vagaver, Earth, and other places. You now have the ability to see those that have been recorded, those that are official, sanctioned doorways. There aren't many of them, but I warn you to be cautious when traveling between them. Most of these doorways are going to open up to other locations on Earth, but a few of them will open to Vagaver, and of those, a few can open to some very dangerous places. I have one such doorway myself. This is mine. And looking at it, you see that the doorway is there, but it's got a kind of translucent sort of look to it. And you can see that there's something shimmering on the other side, but what that something is, you just don't know. I have a private doorway. Some of us are lucky in that respect. I urge you to be careful and cautious when using these doorways. As I said, many of them will open between locations on Earth, but a few go to Vagaver, and a few of those are quite dangerous.
Yeah, I'm right by it. I'm gonna reach and touch the door, and I just reflexively have to ask him, like, where does it lead?
Touching it is like touching a pane of frosted glass. And you can see that there's something on the other side. He simply smiles and says, "It's a memory behind my door, and it's something private I keep only for myself." And with that, he runs his hand across the edge of it, and there are a few lights that kind of blink on the edges, and then it just sort of folds itself back down into those tiles. And he smiles again at you. "Perhaps someday I'll show you."
I nod, and I'm distracted by the other lights I see in the distance.
Yeah, so looking around, the impression you get, and he sort of explains this to you, is that you are able now to see where other doorways are, but what exactly they are, that is a different matter. And he tells you that, should you wish, you need to think in order to be aware of what those doorways are and where they lead. And if they are legal doorways, if they are sanctioned doorways, you'll get a short list with which you can access, with which you can read destinations, with which you can find codes to enter, and with which you can pass through with permission. At least for now, for as long as you are authorized by the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities. And he looks at each one of you, and he tells you that each one of you now has a different ability. One ability that was given to you based on your interests, based on your talents. Please use these wisely. We will be watching you, and we can take these back. My suspicion is that if my mother trusted you, then you must be good people. But as an agent of the society, I do need to be sure you will use these gifts, use these abilities wisely and honestly. So please, do not abuse them. And so with that, he kind of turns it over to you. He steps back behind his desk, and he is Langdon Clemens. He sighs.
I'll look over to these guys and ask, should we talk to him about the pants guy?
Yeah, that's got to be first on the list. All right, we have. You want to go ahead, Z?
Yeah. Dr. Farley, Langdon,
please. And he...
I met someone who claims he knew you. Are you familiar with a vice rector? I don't remember his name.
Oh my God, you just threw me on the spot. You threw me under the bus. I do have his name. Vice Rector... Bowersock.
Right. Yeah, Vice Rector Bowersock. Are you familiar with him?
When you say that, his expression changes. I am aware of Vice Rector Bowersock. That is true. You have met him then, I assume.
Yes.
I should have known that this would have happened. You are at St. John's Seminary.
Mm-hmm.
The Vice Rector and I are old friends. We don't always see eye to eye, and we do. And you get the feeling that now You get the feeling that what he's talking about at this point is his Dr. Farley persona. There is something about the vice rector that I have never quite trusted. However, in my profession, I do exchanges with St. John's Seminary from time to time. His students will come here to study certain subjects. We send students over there to study certain more religious subjects. There is something about him that makes me uncomfortable. However, I cannot put my finger on it.
I think I can help.
How so? Have you talked to him?
Are you familiar with an organization called the Sunshine House?
I have heard of the Sunshine House. They are, I believe they're a group. They're an orphanage, or is that correct?
Yeah. Look at this literature.
So he takes the flyer, and for those of you watching at home, last episode, Z received a flyer from Vice Rector Bowersock and his Monsignor, asking him to go to the Sunshine House. Langdon takes a look at it, and he flips through it very quickly. Yes, here it is. It's an orphanage. Yes, now that I recall, I think I saw an article here about shipments of shoes being sent overseas to our doughboys. That's right. A lot of good they must do there. How is it that you came by this?
Look at the picture on page 2.
He pauses at that. He flips the flyer open. And then he takes a deep sigh.
All caught up.
My God. The resemblance is striking. Absolutely striking. And this is, yes, it's not Coatsworth, is it? This Humbert Pantsman, my God. I had no idea. There's no, and you were told to go to this place?
Farley, I think.
Why?
Well, 2 things. The vice rector knew we were here.
Yeah.
I think you have spies on the campus filtering information to him.
Well, you definitely have
about
spies,
us.
and I'll get to
About
that.
us.
Go ahead.
And he said that Pantsman is aware of me specifically and was talked to by the vice rector, and he told me to go visit him and do some charity work with him.
You must be cautious.
You have an amazing grasp of the obvious.
He's
I
not
do-
happy. Oh, go ahead.
I do have an inability in social interaction, so I did say that. So
He's
yeah.
offended by what you said. You must be very, very cautious. What? They knew that you were here. We do, of course, have students that are on an exchange between, they take classes. Sometimes they come here for just a few hours in the day and then they head back. And you say that you were spotted by some of these students, perhaps, or perhaps even worse, agents, if that's what they are.
Well, I don't know who it was that saw us, but I do think it particularly odd that not so much that my presence would be told to the seminarians at the seminary, But for them to specifically talk about my friends?
He looks at Vesper. Have you been moving between worlds recklessly and without?
I come out of my reverie and turn to him, and well, we've just gone back and forth to Vagaver as we needed, but not just now.
He shakes his head. This is what happens. This is what happens. The four of you are in danger. Our organization now is in danger. It's imperative that you find out more. And it's imperative that you find Coatsworth and this Pantsman character. I will, of course, make sure that our agents here on the campus are aware of this. As a matter of fact, and with that he turns and he moves his hand across the desktop. And that same thing that happened before now happens once again. And the entire room sort of changes and it becomes the same but somehow different. And you get the feeling that you are somewhere else, as if perhaps you were in Vagaver without really being in Vagaver. And he calls up a display and he sends out some commands through the display. And you can kind of see like little lights on it are like moving this way and that. And there's kind of like they blink from red to green. And then several messages kind of beep a few times as if like they were trying to get there but didn't get to whoever was supposed to receive them. And then he pulls the display down. And he looks back at you. It's imperative that whatever is going on, I am not sure what's going on here. I had always suspected there was something about the vice rector. Please, it's important that you find out what's going on.
It's worse than you think, in terms of
he stops. He's like, "There's more."
Yeah.
He's like, "What?"
You're aware of Reginald Winthrop, the grad student?
Yes, I do know Reginald.
Okay. When we left yesterday, he tailed us back. He followed me to my apartment and he entered. Because he's not really Reginald. He was a skin dog.
He leans back in his chair like this is all too much for him.
And I was only able to dispatch one of the two.
Surely.
Half of the dogs are still on the loose.
This is not possible.
Certainly is. I'll give him the document.
He takes a look.
Give him the document.
He takes it from you. He takes a look at it, and he just drops it like it's a hot potato. My God, you've been carrying this thing?
Yeah. We wanted to find out what it was and get your advice on this.
Do you know... He takes another look at it. So... what I'm going to do now is this. He looks at you. I need you to help me. He looks at you, Dietrich. We need to figure out exactly what this thing is, because this is no laundry document, and this is certainly no recommendation for transfer into another class. I'm going to need your help. And he calls up a few more displays, and he asks you to kind of step around to the other side of his desk.
Sure.
So what I need to know right now, and the help that I need with this, and so he actually directs you in a very general way to sort of take care of this item over here and take care of that item over there on a display, working together. And he asks you for any help you may be able to provide in things that you have seen on your travels between Vagaver and earth. Is there anything in here that you recall having seen before? Any of the language, any of perhaps the symbolry that are written onto it? And so I can give you a roll for this.
Yeah.
And you can tell me what you want to use. I'm assuming intellect.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and use some intellect on that. That's
Okay.
fine.
Are you going to be easing the task or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to ease the task. We still kind of haven't settled on whether or not I was truly given training in the writing, or
We'll call it eased 1 for that
call
for
it
right
eased.
now.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then how about go the old standby of tasks related to figuring out how to solve problems with multiple solutions?
Okay, I'll ease it by 2.
Perfect. And then I'll go ahead and use a level of effort.
Okay.
Only a 7.
Looking it over, he becomes very nervous talking between you and he. He takes a look at the little red dots, and he seems very, very concerned by them. And he says that
The red dots on the paper?
The red dots on the paper, if you recall.
Okay.
And what he says is that basically these red dots are often used for fusing objects to organic matter. And that they are sometimes used to take skin samples. They are, he explains, essentially small little mouths that feed off of dead skin cells. But beyond that, he has no idea why this would have been necessary and what it is. And he explains, actually, that if you look carefully at the items that you were given, you will find the same small little mouths, as he puts it, on each one. And that is because each one becomes imprinted to you as a user of that item. And so with that, it almost kind of protects the item from being used by others. And he looks at you, Murphy, and he explains that if you look carefully at the grip, you should be able to see these small little mouths. And you, oh, go ahead.
No, I do. I've seen them.
And you, Dietrich, should have seen them on the goggles which you were given.
Saw them. Yep.
And what I worry is, why would he use this item? What is this thing? I urge you to, again, be cautious. And when he says that, he looks over at Z as if he's just waiting for you to make a smart remark about that. I urge you to be cautious in this. He folds the paper carefully so that those little pink mouths, those little red mouths, are no longer exposed, and he hands it back to you.
Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it?
I honestly do not know. If it were me, I am a curious fellow, and I would probably... Oof. He sighs. It's up to you. I don't know in this case.
Do you think there's more to learn from it?
There may be, but it's really up to you.
Because I'm curious as well, but I'm hesitant to give them a way to interact with us.
I agree. It's up to you. I'm so sorry. If you wish, I could perhaps put you in touch with a specialist, but I don't want to keep this thing in my office. So do with it what you will. Dispose of it, throw it in the river, put it in your pocket, eat it, whatever you want. But please, let's not keep it here.
That's fine.
All right. So, are there any other questions that we have for Langdon, or are we kind of...
Yeah.
Oh,
I got a couple, I guess. The first is, you're sure that you don't think that Pantsman is the real Coatsworth?
Pantsman is most likely a duplicate. I'm not sure if you've noticed this because you haven't been going between Vagaver and Earth for very long, but there are quite a few duplicates. And they do go back, or they do exist. Sometimes you get the feeling that you've seen someone before, somewhere before.
Yes.
And when you experience those times, most of the time it's just your mind playing tricks on you, but every so often it's a duplicate from Vagaver that's made their way to Earth, and you are seeing that same person before. I worry that if this is a duplicate of Harold Coatsworth, I worry what the intentions of this Coatsworth twin, are.
What knowledge and powers does the duplicate possess?
It could be anything. It could be the shine that all of you possess. It could be nothing. I have read stories and I've read books in which studies between Vagaver and Earth have been done, and sometimes there is an ability, sometimes there is nothing.
Now, Mr. Farley.
Please call me Langdon.
Langdon.
I know it's confusing.
I know that TBD's glasses give him some insight for Vagaverians.
Some.
And reveals their true nature.
Some.
How can we recognize NESPA agents versus Ward agents? Do you have some kind of secret handshake? Is there a code word that only New England society members would know?
So
because I feel we're embroiled in some espionage plot here, and this is not my area of expertise.
So he directs your attention, and if you recall a few episodes ago, what I did, and I probably didn't make it very clear, but what I ended up giving you guys were those small business cards.
Right.
And so the business cards function in the same way that the business cards that you originally saw from Harold Coatsworth functioned. You could kind of like, when you flick them, you could kind of like project an image onto them or whatever it was that you wanted. So he tells you that what you can do is you can flash the card and show it to others. And for those members that have the card and that are part of the society, they will see it as a sign from the society. For those that do not, they will not know and not be aware of it.
Okay. That's something. Sure.
Do you know if the duplicate is able to communicate with the original?
That is an interesting question, but the answer I don't know. The Game Master, I just want to add, loves that question. I love it.
Great.
But I'm sorry, as Langdon Clemens, no idea. I know, right? You just gave me a bad, or what could be a bad or a good idea, depending on how you take that.
One final question for you, Langdon.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Are you aware of any Vagaverians who favor the dress and the style of dress of a 17th century Puritan?
He almost chuckles at that. I am not. That specific form of dress, I am not. However, you must understand that we are talking about, in some cases, souls that have been moving between Vagaver and Earth for hundreds of years. You, of course, met my father, who should, by all rights, be dead now. Even if he had not died, he surely could not be as old as he is at this point. And so that is something that sometimes you will see in souls, is that they carry on and continue. The style, the dress, some of the cultural aspects and societal habits that they had in their previous incarnations. Why? Is there something else I am unaware of?
No, just a shade and a apparition that I've had since I was a younger boy.
I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Perhaps it's something you need to work out on your own. But I tell you, there are very few coincidences in life, and perhaps this is now something that you're living out as your destiny. Perhaps all of you have something like that. And he looks at each one of you, and his eyes go to your coat pocket, Vesper, where you keep your pocket watch, as if to ask, where did that come from? How did you ever end up with that?
Unwittingly, my hand goes to it. And I look up and to the left and say, oh, by the way, I got a visit from the local traffic cop. You were deriding us not long ago about traveling without permission, even if it was at the society's bidding. But one of their kind, who we spoke about before, caught up with me and gave me a ticket.
He chuckles. I do hope that you pay the fine as soon as possible. The interest on those...
Of course, I wouldn't think of not treating that with the utmost of care.
I am happy to hear that. You would be surprised at how many of the youth today do not respect those fines.
Yes, I'm an upholding citizen. I like to play by the rules of interdimensional travel. When it is thrust upon me in a very, very unsuspecting way.
He seems very happy to know that you're interested in paying the citation, and he assures you that should you pay it before the deadline, you should have no troubles at all. Not to worry. And of course we know, and cut to a shot of a janitor sweeping up this odd citation across the Boston Symphony Hall's audience floor.
So is the big bad really going to be traffic court?
Right.
Nope.
That's going to be it. You're going to go. We're going to do it. We're going to do a whole 4-hour episode just on you paying a citation, like waiting in line for hours and like taking a ticket and then just sitting at a seat.
You finally arrive at the window and it's lunchtime.
That's right. That's right. GM intrusion.
Speaking of Department of Motor Vehicles,
great segue.
Yes.
Langdon, any news on the car we requested?
Didn't you receive the vehicle? Are you carrying? Do you have the carpet right now?
This is an automobile?
Yeah. Well, of course. And he takes it from you, unless you fight him for it, and he tosses it on the ground. And he hits a few flight of the threads, and they glow, and then the shape changes, and it forms a vehicle. And it like everybody has to step back. It's so big.
Nice.
Whoa!
You guys got a big office.
Yep.
Wow.
It's for
pretty
the sake of
jealous.
drama because there's
Oh, sorry.
this is
Impressive.
theater of the mind. I can say it's as
Dang.
big as I
I
want.
got a pretty big mind.
And he runs his hands across the running boards, and they sort of glow for a second, and then it sort of like folds itself inward, and it becomes a carpet again. Well, didn't you talk
You
to
are-
it?
Pretty okay, my friend Langdon.
This is truly amazing.
There's
You're
the
cool
smell
to
of
talk
like,
to it.
It's got a
Yeah,
good carpet smell.
if you recall, carpet, and the carpet speaks up again, and that voice, as you recall, I believe Z, I think you were the only one that could hear it, or perhaps you were just out of earshot. But the carpet introduces itself to you.
Right. No, and it told me to. I think
There was
at
much
one
more.
point, like hang on or
Yeah.
something. It was something like that. Okay. So this thing is not just a carpet. Amazing.
Absolutely, it's the
Remarkable.
vehicle you ordered. And as a matter of fact,
Remarkable.
it seats 4 in the right
Beautiful.
configuration.
So Vesper, Murph, a hitchhiker. We're good.
Right.
All right.
Are there any other questions,
Oh,
gentlemen?
Fantastic.
Oh,
I
and
do.
Mr. Murphy, I know that Dietrich does. He always has more questions. But Mr. Murphy, have you inspected your gun yet?
I've looked at it. I have not fired it off. Did not feel that prudent.
The gun doesn't just imprint on your hand, but it becomes one with your hand. So if you were to say, keep it and think of it becoming one with your hand, it will disappear into your flesh. No need for any holsters anymore.
So, like this, I'll take it out and
Mm-hmm.
hold it accordingly, and
Let your hands
about
slide over the
those
mouths.
sticky bumps.
Mm-hmm. And as it does, it begins to change color, almost like camouflage, and it becomes almost like living flesh, and it becomes to sort of recede. And it's a very icky kind of feeling at first, but it recedes into your hand, becoming a large, at first, almost like a tumor that then sort of disappears into your hand, and you can kind of feel like a ripple up your shoulder as it absorbs itself. And now think it out.
And I will do that.
And as
Did
you
it-
do so, it starts to reform and come out. The gun is powered and bulleted by your flesh. In order to reload it, simply keep it on you for a few hours, and all 6 chambers will be refilled. Or wait, what was it that you imagined it to be?
No, revolver. Yes. 6
Okay.
chambers.
So all 6 chambers will refill. It will also take ordinary cartridges, earth cartridges, and Vagaver cartridges as well.
Incredible.
Gentlemen, are we done here?
BBD had a
One last.
question.
Yes,
Yep.
go ahead.
The equipment is fantastic, and to some extent, particularly the communicators, is more than I had expected. So we definitely thank you for the equipment. I was hoping to have been able to upgrade my weapon as well to make it universal cartridges.
I knew it wouldn't be enough. I cannot believe
Of course
after
not.
the amazing things that I've given you guys, you're like, that's not actually enough
course
for
not.
me.
Can
Yes,
I give him some of
Mr.
my
Dietrich,
flesh bullets?
how is it that you would like to upgrade?
Just the ability to have ammunition that works in both locations.
Well, perhaps I could arrange for something to be sent to Mr. Murphy's. Oh, that is correct. He stops for a moment and he realizes that you also, Mr. Dietrich, carry a weapon.
Yep.
Let me have something sent to you.
Okay.
Cool.
The last thought I wanted was I'd pull out my lighter.
Yes.
It works here, but flame
Yes.
doesn't work there. So I was hoping to have a
He
vibrating
sighs.
lighter.
He sighs. He like feels around in his pocket. He pulls a lighter out and he hands it to you.
As soon as I possibly can, I pull my watch out and go, I believe time is running short to reach the paper.
Yeah. Tick, 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 tick.
That's perfect.
Ladies
right,
and
let's
gentlemen,
make
it's just another riveting episode of the Fierce Brew tonight.
I love
What
the
else could
shopping
we ask
episodes.
for? Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make haste.
All right.
But
Let's have a very interesting encounter with someone at a desk to open an ad in a paper.
I know,
Well,
right? Here we
well,
go.
No, before that,
Oh.
once we get to a good spot on the street, I'm pulling out this carpet and saying,
Oh yeah.
carpet, revere, make it look like
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah.
Boom.
Okay, so you head out onto the street, and actually, so just so that we kind of recap here, you've all realized that there's a little bit more to the items that you were given, and you've also realized that you can now communicate with Langdon Clemens, right? So you sub-vocalized to him, and it seems like you're now in communication with him, should you need to be. So you head out onto Massachusetts Avenue, just a few blocks away from Radcliffe Quad on the Harvard University campus. And it's fairly busy, I have to tell you. Like, everywhere you kind of turn, there are quite a few crowds. Or there are a lot of people that have formed, and people are celebrating the armistice, which is now, everybody knows about it at this point. You have to sort of find an alleyway that's, because I assume you're not going to do this in public, right?
Right.
You manage to find yourself an alleyway where you toss the carpet down onto the ground, and it hits but hovers. And then with that, as you speak to it and you sort of try to imitate what it was that Langdon Clemens said and what he did, you eventually manage to turn the thing, and it turns into whatever vehicle it was. I presume maybe the one in the back or in your background right now, that you want, with a few slight modifications. Like when you kind of look at the controls and things like that, it doesn't look like an official whatever model it is that you want, but it looks like a very close approximation of it. And I assume the four of you are getting into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you get into it, you notice who's in the back seat.
I'll get in the back.
Who else? Don't worry, it's a good thing. I know you're like nervous. You're like, what?
It's up to you, Murph. Do you want shotgun or do you want the back
No,
seat?
I'll ride
Seems
up
like a
front.
front guy. Yeah.
All right, I'll be in the back.
So, Mr. Dietrich and Vesper, you both notice that there appears to be a stairwell that goes down to a second floor.
I'm sorry. What?
Whoa! We're in the lounge, baby. Once around the park, Z.
I'm gonna nudge. I want to nudge TBD like, and I start.
You can't
climbing
talk.
down
You're
the
just
stairs.
like
That's right.
I just want to sneak downstairs.
heading downstairs.
They
What
drink.
Z sees when he looks into the back is that Vesper's gone, and Dietrich is just kind of staring down into the footwell. Dietrich, you head down and you get the feeling like you're on a very small boat, like a personal boat, and it's not a boat. Vesper, it's not a boat. It's basically it's like a ship, and looking
So a big boat.
no, not in that respect. I mean, it has the feel. The closest approximation is that you're sort of entering the lower deck of a boat and looking around. There's an area where there are like 4 berths. There's a very small kitchen, and then there's like a small bench and a table and things like that where you could all kind of eat your meals or
I
whatever
can't
it
control myself. I just call up, "It's amazing down here. We could stay here. Murphy, there's a kitchen."
Ooh. Is it
And so,
stocked?
so
Yeah,
as
any
yeah,
drinks?
right. It's not. It is not stocked. No, not at this point. And so as I assume that you're kind of pulling out into traffic, Z.
Yeah,
As you've
yeah.
done this, you can just hear and you know that your companions have kind of disappeared down the stairwell.
And like
And they're-
echoing up the stairs.
Right. And that's essentially what you're kind of getting out of this as you make your way through the streets. And you are heading towards
The
the
new
We're
Boston
heading down
Globe or
Cambridge. I know how to get us there, Z.
Mhm.
We just need to head down Cambridge, cross the Cambridge Bridge, and Newspaper Row is on Washington Street, right downtown.
Nice. And so tell us a little bit about where we're going, Frank, please.
Well, we're headed specifically to the Globe, and
Mm-hmm.
I know a little bit about it because I've done some night work there in years past, just some pickup jobs. It's right off of all the activity. Let's see, Washington Street is just south of where the Boston Massacre happened. It's not all that far from North Church. It's a bit of a
Mhm.
walk, but not too far. We're headed to the Globe, and by the time it is now, I got to tell you guys, we've missed the evening edition. The Boston Evening Globe is an afternoon publication, but we can put an ad there for the morning.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think that's the
think-
plan. Yeah.
I think if we're lucky enough, Ruthie will be the secretary
Mm-hmm.
right there at the entryway. I feel like she was kind of sweet on me when I worked nights, but at least I think we can get us to get an ad in by the time that things go to print.
So you arrive at the Boston Globe, and indeed, as Murphy was predicting, you are just a little bit too late to make the evening edition. However, as Murphy has just sort of predicted, Ruthie is on duty behind the counter as you enter the lobby, and now there's the hustle and bustle of a lot of people coming and going, reporters. You can't really tell. Actually, to be honest, there are soldiers in there, there are reporters, there are civilians who are looking for news about loved ones and things like that. It's a little tough to kind of find your way, but Ruthie, when she spots her Francis, she gets very she spots you. and
Hey,
asks you-
Ruthie.
Hey.
Hey.
She leans over across and opens her
How
window.
things been?
Oh, they're better now that you're here, Francis.
Oh, nice. I'm not working.
How's it going? The war is. Did you hear the news?
Big news. Big news. We're all very excited. In fact, now that things have settled down overseas, we're trying to make some connections stateside. And I was hoping that my friends and we could get an ad in for the morning edition before things go to print.
Yes, I think. Well, she checks her watch. Yeah, of course the deadline. It's still wide open. You just missed the one for the evening edition, but yeah, if you want to get the morning edition in, that'd be fine. I can get you in touch with the person that can do that for you.
That would be fantastic.
Oh, that would be, and it's so nice to see you again. Where have you been? I haven't seen you in, it feels like weeks.
I've been working. I've been a little under the weather. You know, the sickness going around. We can't be too careful.
Oh, I know. She leans in as if to kind of like tell you something very secret. My roommate has it. Don't tell anyone.
No,
We're all very
I
nervous.
won't mention it.
Yeah, but she's sort of breathing her germs all over you. And then she leans back. You want me to go get the guy that does the ads, the classifieds for the morning edition now?
Yeah, please bring them out.
Okay,
Let's touch
okay.
base.
Well, okay. So we don't have to role play through this entire. This is not the morning edition actual play, but you do manage to get in touch with the fellow that puts those ads into print. What exactly and I'm going to have to write this down because I want to make sure that I get this right. But what exactly is it that you fellas are putting in the ad?
So I've written an ad that I want to put in, and I'll run it by you guys.
Nice.
Very simple, very succinct. Coatsworth, Boston Public Library basement. Let's talk.
Oh.
11 a.m.
Yeah.
today. No dogs allowed.
That's brilliant.
Okay. I know it's like a bestseller. That's like Hemingway couldn't have written.
XP for Zed there. That's
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We want to do
really
a
fun.
What do
Well
we think?
prepared.
All right. We'll give Zed some XP for that. So go ahead and give yourself an XP. Sounds good. So Coatsworth, Boston Public Library, 11 a.m. today. No dogs? Is that what you're saying here?
No dogs allowed.
No dogs allowed, or it's going to be extra for the allowed.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So he gets this all together. So this will be in the morning edition. All right. So you should be able to see. You'll see this this will be out at 5 a.m. this morning.
Streets at 5. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Should be hitting the streets by then. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate.
So with that, you guys kind of thread your way out back to the vehicle. Are we up to anything, or where are we going now?
I want to walk down the stairs of the vehicle and see what these digs look like. Is there enough bedroom for all of us to use this as our mobile headquarters?
So the odd thing I assume here is that the four of you all step into the back seat and make your way down.
It's like a clown car.
Yeah, it's
I
like
know.
one of those.
I have
with
to, 'cause
everything-
I was down there and I want to show them around.
With everything going on, nobody really notices, and there is kind of
I
a
will
door
actually
that.
stay up top.
Oh, okay. And there's a door that
I'll
you can
stay
kind
up
of, you can kind of close up to make it look like a regular vehicle. So looking at you tell me, Steve. So the way that I imagined it was kind of like a boat, basically.
So
a
like
very
a below
small,
deck,
private
below deck of a yacht kind of thing, or not yacht, but like one of those.
Let's
like
not
25
get
footers or something.
excited, okay?
Yeah.
Let's not get excited. I'm
Yeah.
not that nice, but.
But like the kind of boats you take on the river where you
Yeah.
go and it's got like a little below deck, little
Yeah.
tiny fridge kind of thing.
Yeah. And I was
All
thinking like 4 berths where each one of you could kind of get a little bit of sack time, and then like a little mini kitchen, whatever passed for a kitchen in 1918.
This is
on a
really
boat.
cool. Yeah, and I'm going to unload 6 Danishes, 2 oranges, 5 apples,
60
and a
dishes.
half-eaten. I think it's some sort
Great
of croissant
Scott.
or French breakfast thing. It's slightly stale, but I'm getting them out of my pockets, and I'm stowing them down here for later.
These from
How much
Langdon's
bacon?
office?
Yes, yes.
How much bacon?
I ate all the bacon.
Yeah, that didn't make it.
Dear Lord, merciful Lord in heaven above.
We got a place to sack down, gentlemen.
Yeah,
This is
so
great.
it looks like you do have a spot. I mean, you could always stay there. And it's bizarre because when you walk into, or when you take the stairwell down, it's going below the ground. But it's when you peek underneath the vehicle there, and you even place your hand underneath it, and it passes clearly as if something is kind of folded here. In space and time. And so with that, what is our next destination?
Well, I think we should talk as a group about what we think about this Pantsman situation. Because at first I thought it was just Coatsworth. But now that there's doppelgangers running around,
Yeah.
We
and are they good?
experienced
Are
this-
they good or are they ill? I mean, it could conceivably be that this is his, Coatsworth is the demon on the shoulder and Pantsman might be the angel. I don't know what to think of the rector. It didn't sound immediately like Langdon thought he was bad per se, just
Yeah, that's the
suspicious of it.
impression you got.
Yeah.
So Z, dude, does it make sense to try and scope out this Pantsman guy?
That's what I was thinking. Do a little
Well,
drive-by.
I doubt the Sunshine House will be open for business at this point. If we do a little skulking around, perhaps. I'm not sure what we would find. I doubt Pantsman would be there now, which may or may not be a blessing.
Well, you can always
Perhaps
check the flyer. I don't want to give you like.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the flyer. But if he's not there, perhaps we could check out his office or just investigate stuff. We've got time to kill.
I've got a brick. I can get us in.
TBD has
Where
lock
there's a
picks
brick,
that
there's
he
a
hasn't
way.
We need
What?
to realize that if there are agents abound, we have made the presence known of the meat. We have interfaced with others who could get this information out there. We must be prudent if we're to do this now, but we must also pre-surveil our meeting area for tomorrow and be prepared in case we are accosted before that time.
I agree with that, Vesper. I also just realized that our TBD has the ability to see Bagavarians.
Certainly do.
So maybe, scoping out this orphanage might reveal a nest of these folks.
Well, not even that. It might pay to check it out now since we know we've been observed and followed in the past. There might be some around us even now.
Did you
TBD.
check Ruth? Ruthie, did you check her?
I did not check her. Nope.
I say it in jest, Murph. I don't think Ruthie would be involved in this nonsense.
She's a
The
little
game
sickly.
master likes this
You
idea.
never know.
Just for my own edification, where did we set our meet? Where are we going to try and meet? Coatsworth?
The library
Okay.
basement, where we lost him last time. Well, I know that Murphy would appreciate a stop at Mickey's, and I wouldn't mind one myself.
In fact, as the resident doppelganger that we've been aware of so far, TBD could get a look at the waitress and see just how
Right.
she resonates in this world or the next.
Right, I forgot about her.
Completely agree.
Okay, so have we made the decision that now that you've gotten your ad in the Boston Globe for tomorrow morning, you're going to kind of go grab a bite to eat at the diner, and then I assume, kind of investigate a little bit there. And then are you kind of heading to the Sunshine House to sort of scout it out? Or did you want to
Where
go to the
was
Boston
the
Public
Sunshine
Library?
House? Where was the Sunshine House geographically?
I'm saying off of Boston Common, like a few blocks off of.
And near the Common, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vaguely, just to give myself some wiggle room. It's a few blocks off the Common.
Well, I say let's go to Mickey's first and see if there's any Vagabarians there, and then we'll see. I think I'd rather skulk around, fairly late at night around the orphanage, so
Yeah.
that we're not seen.
Yeah. So now is the time. So why don't we do this? Why don't we? It's about 9:30, or I should say, it's about an hour and a half into the game, because I don't know when you are watching this, viewer. Let's take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we will work on the back half of this mission for tonight. So we're going to be back in 10 minutes. If you like what you're watching, please like and subscribe. It always feels very validating to get a like or two on every episode that we play. Thank you very much for that. And we will be back in 10 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I see that we've gotten a flurry of likes. I'm so excited to see that. Thank you very much for sticking with us. In the top half of the game, our heroes managed to take care of some bookkeeping by returning to Dr. Farley, otherwise known as Langdon Clemens, for some clarifications on the items that they received at the end of last episode, as well as the answers to some of their questions about the possible whereabouts of Mr. Coatsworth III and the possible connections he may have to what appears to be his doppelganger here on Earth, Humbert Pantsman III, who works at or is in charge of the Sunshine House here in Boston. And so with those clarifications and those questions kind of out of the way, our heroes then placed an ad, an old-fashioned classified ad in the Boston Globe, calling out Mr. Coatsworth III for a meeting at 11 a.m. at the Boston Public Library with no dogs. And so at this point, gentlemen, you're free to sort of discuss what your next steps are and what you would like to do as far as advancing us through the story.
Well, let's assume we'll be discussing this at the diner because it's evening now, and I am already lusting for additional sustenance.
Got it. All right.
We're
So
gonna-
you're not
we're
going to
gonna
be.
sit.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
Mhm.
No, I was going to say we can sit in a booth 2 by 2 and just communicate with the octopi. Just stare at each other
Look into our cups of
in total silence.
yeah.
Murph can talk while he eats.
That's right.
There you go.
Murphy, you finally got that.
Beautiful. I want
yeah.
to order a slice of blueberry pie and a
Check.
coffee.
Got it. It's damn good pie when you try it. Damn good.
Excellent.
So what are we discussing here, gentlemen? Or
We gotta find if the waitress is working and get a good look through the goggles at her to see if
Right.
there's some kind of resonance with Vagaver or if she's a true Earth being.
all right. So who's
They're
gonna
not X-ray specs, Vesper.
I'm not going to that. I'm
Sure.
talking about
We're gonna
her
find out.
interdimensional character.
Ah, cool. Good.
So looking around the diner, you don't even have to roll for this, but you do notice that waitress with that moxie is on duty. And you can only sort of assume that she's at the end of her shift, or she works a very, very long shift, because she has indeed been here since earlier on in the day when you all stopped in for, I believe it was an early lunch. She's not actually she's not attending to your section, but yes, she is here.
Okay. I also want to spend some time just getting used to the goggles themselves. Do they have the ability to blend into my skin the way Murphy's gun does?
That is exactly what I was about to handle. And so when you're placing them on your face here in the booth, as you do so, you begin to feel that sensation that Murphy perhaps had described to you earlier of a coldness around the orbits of your eyes, and then a stickiness, and then you go temporarily, your vision goes temporarily foggy as they begin to adhere themselves to your face, and then your companions see them almost disappear and begin to fold into your eyeballs. And then as you blink a few times to kind of get your vision about you, you realize that you are seeing this sort of half Vagaver, half Earth kind of environment. And looking around, you don't see any non-humans. The waitress is actually not there at the moment. She's gone into the back of the restaurant, perhaps to pick up another order. But you do not see any Vagavurians that you're aware of.
All right. Yeah, I don't see anyone, guys, but the waitress just went into the back for a second. Let's just give her a minute. When she comes back out, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Are we simply
right.
waiting, or?
Well, let's chat it out a little bit. Are we headed to that orphanage? Is that what it is? Wait.
Well, the Sunshine House is an orphanage. I don't know where they house the children, if they're there or if it's a kind of a day school kind of thing. I really don't know. Does the pamphlet give any indication?
Yeah. The pamphlet basically says that the Sunshine House has been around for nearly 100 years. And it's one of the pillars of the community in the city. And they have been housing children for all of that time. And actually, it is a dormitory for these children, and it is a place for them to stay, to go to school, or to perhaps even learn a trade, or to perhaps just to seek shelter. And of course, it is all built with the idea in mind of housing the children of Boston that do not have a family or a place to go. So you assume, yes, from reading through the flyer, the children do stay there.
And it's an actual, I mean, Sunshine House represents an actual physical house.
It's an actual building, yes. Yeah. Okay. And there's maybe a picture of it in there and a description, and it's 5 or 6 floors high. And from looking at it, it looks like it's a fairly big building with a lot of room to it, a lot of floor space.
Okay. So if it's okay with you guys, I think it would be good to pay it a visit when the sun goes down and just kind of maybe have TBD scan it for any kind of Vagavurian residue or activity. But I don't know what to make of this Pantsworth. Pantsman. He might be an ally. He might be the evil, the good to Coatsworth's evil, which tomorrow we're gonna, with any luck, hopefully Coatsworth reads the papers. We'll meet him there.
Do we need to do any other reconnaissance or investigation into the vice rector? Do we know if maybe he's part of the Watch and Ward Society?
Well, he said that he spoke to Pantsman about me, and that I would be paying Pantsman a visit. So, but I don't know.
And until we know where Pantsman stands, we really don't have an idea of that affiliation.
Right.
Right. So do we want to do any pre-research before we go meet them, or I don't know?
That sounds like a lot of work.
Is our goal to talk to Pantsman at all? Are we trying to avoid him while we're there?
With tonight's meeting, I don't think we'll encounter him unless he happens to have maintain a residence on the property, in which case, being knocked on his door by 4 strangers probably would not endear us very well to him under any circumstances.
Right.
So I think tonight is reconnaissance, and pending the result of tomorrow's meeting with Coatsworth, Pantsman's the next visit, perhaps.
Cool. That sounds great.
All right. Is there anything else?
Has the waitress come out yet?
The waitress has come out. She looks human to you.
All right. She looks human, guys.
Are we in
But
like eye shot of the library?
You're not too
No.
far. I mean, you're not in eye. Yeah, you're right. You couldn't see it, but you're not too far away. Or wait, no, Frank, you know this better than us. Where is Mickey's?
Mickey's is on the corner of what is it? Gloucester
Oh,
and Newbury. Yeah,
hmm
it's close to Fenway.
yeah, but
It's closer to Fenway than it is to
to the library.
the square.
Yeah.
But it's right down the street.
Yeah, you could just head down Boylston.
I want to stop there before we go because I want to keep an eye out for any of the Vagavarian doors,
Mm-hmm.
especially here at Mickey's, since there's some connection to Vagaver at this place, and then at the library, which is more little recon for our meeting tomorrow to know if there's
Well,
doors to look out for or something.
if Sunshine House is near the Commons, we can hit the library right on the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
are you gentlemen going to be leaving Mickey's now and heading to Sunshine House to kind of scout it out? And also
I think
stop
so.
at the library beforehand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume you kind of get your bill paid, and as you make your way out, what you notice is that the waitress actually, who seemed not to have noticed you perhaps before, she clearly glances out through the window and does make eye contact with, we'll say, who was it that had the most contact? Who was the one that asked her for the cigarette?
That's Vesper.
That was Vesper. So she's making eye contact with you, Vesper. So she did see you, at least, or at least sees you now. And-
I'll look. I want to return the gaze, but also after it lingers a little too long, I'm going to be looking past her because I'm trying to find these doorways.
Mm-hmm. And as you're walking down the street, you do occasionally. So the two of you, both Dietrich and Vesper, you're kind of seeing the world in a slightly different way now. So you, Dietrich, are seeing almost a kind of a thin, gauzy-like veil of Vagaver. And every once in a while, it seems a little bit stronger here or there. The light is stronger. You're not seeing necessarily Vagavurians. And in fact, you don't see any more. Definitely no skin dogs. But you do kind of get the feeling like you're in another place. Some things are swapped out for other things. So, for example, you may look at one building which appears to be made out of brick and mortar, just the standard, sort of building that you would find in 1918 Boston. But then as you blink and kind of take a deeper look, it's almost made out of an organic material that appears to be breathing. And now this organic material reminds you of the sort of surfaces and textures that you saw back in Tremontaine. So what you feel like you're looking at is a lot of Tremontaine as you make your way down the road. For you, Vesper, it's a slightly different sort of experience. You're not seeing Vagaver, but when you look in certain areas and in certain directions, what you see are tiny little doorways that are 2 or 3 blocks away, and they're just sort of floating in front of your eyes as if they were really there. And then you notice, say, for example, one of them, which is a little bit of the ways down the street, and as you continue down the street, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you realize that it's floating somewhere within a building that you see to the side. Mm. And most interestingly of all, every so often, you see these doorways underground. And you note that they kind of like align with the subway system as far as you can kind of tell. But you're not 100% sure on this. So in other words, you're seeing the telltale signs of these doorways, but where they go or what they are, that's something you'd have to probably get up close to and investigate in order to figure out what they are.
Right.
Until eventually you do make it to the Boston Public Library as you're making your way down Boylston Street. And now, examining the library, neither one of you see anything necessarily out of the ordinary. And when I say out of the ordinary, I mean Vagavurian, something that shows. But what you do notice when you look at the library, Dietrich, is it no longer looks really like the library to you. You see that kind of ghostly veil of the records hall that you were in before. And you can kind of like see, and maybe when you squint your eyes, you're not sure if it's an illusion or not, but you swear you can see Vagavurians kind of coming and going. But again, maybe it's your imagination. It's kind of hard to see. And at this point, are you gentlemen going to do anything even in just, say, real time here in Boston? It's getting later in the evening, and now it's clearly, I mean, we can play with the time, but I'm going to guess it's around 8 or 9 o'clock.
I just want to sit out to these guys, like after TBD tells us about what he's seeing at the library. I wonder if the Sunshine House perhaps has a doppelganger of Pascal.
That's a thought. Could be.
If everything here has a double or something, so maybe that's something to keep in mind.
So are we now on our way to go to the Sunshine House?
Yeah.
I think so. We're gonna do a drive-by, right?
That sounds so sinister.
Yeah, I think we'll drive by and scope it out, but I think we, depending on what we see there, maybe we'll skulk around.
Yeah, that's fine. I just thought we should do a drive-by first, see what.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely with your optical gadget, we'll do that.
Okay. So as you approach, you kind of needle your way, and you have to go around a few corners, and it's just off of Boston Common by a block or two. But what becomes immediately clear is that you don't even really need the goggles or this doorway vision in order to really see it. It stands out immediately. Though it has gotten dark out, and though it's cool, and there's very little light in the alleyways and in the streets, this is it's a glittering red brick building that almost seems, the surfaces of which almost seem wet. And
that's the Vagavurian influence on the building?
This is what it looks like here on Earth.
Okay.
So when you look at it through those goggles, you see a large building that almost appears to be breathing.
Weird.
It's got a strangely flesh-like, red, fleshy, veiny surface to it that is very different than what you'd been kind of used to watching different buildings go by. This one is very different than what you've seen before, and it stands out, I want to say, like a sore thumb, and it's kind of a fitting metaphor because it almost looks, the feeling you get is it looks almost sick or ailed in a way.
How large is the property?
The property, it's a building wedged between a couple other buildings. So there's very little property to speak of. It's just simply a building built on top of whatever square foot of land had been purchased whenever, 100 years presumably before. Looking at it, looking carefully, like I said, it almost appears to be wet and breathing. And it glistens in an organic fashion to you in the light. For you, Vesper, what you're kind of struck by is that you see nothing. It's like dead space. And this is something you hadn't seen before. You were used to seeing a glowing outline of, say, a doorway or maybe a shimmering, fogged glass, kind of bright with light behind it. But for you, looking in the quick glimpse you get passing by, you see almost a darkness to it that you haven't seen before. As if there were no energy here. None of that energy that composes the doors that you've been seeing before. As if nothing were there. And
So
all
it
of...
seems like we got two sort of choices here, fellas. One is they are able to block the access to Vagafer, or it doesn't go to Vagafer, it goes to someplace else.
Lights are on various floors, but it looks like it's the evening now, and it looks like people are kind of, well, doesn't look like anything, but the feeling you get is that the building is kind of like people in the building are going to bed. Or
were there any obvious guards on the outside?
no obvious guards. Obvious.
How many entrances did we see?
You saw one main entrance, a stairwell leading up to it with a giant set of double doors. Again, that kind of organic-looking, fleshy substance to you, which in Boston appears to be, you know, the normal sort of doors that you see, except with that sheen on it. There were also two dark alleyways that go down the left and the right side of the building.
Okay.
This is an
And
ill
in
place.
drive-by, we're not able to see the other side.
No, because the back of the building, just from driving around, you can kind of see is probably it's back to back with another building on the other side of the block.
Right.
I have to share with everyone what I'm seeing. I've never seen a building like this. It is so ill. It just is sucking the energy and the light from no moonlight escapes. What is this place? Sunshine House? This is as dark as the night.
And that is very much the feeling that you get. That's the odd thing, is when you look at it from the Boston side, it's glistening as if reflecting light. But when you kind of see it through that Vagaverian lens, it's almost like it's absorbing light or bending it.
I feel as though this is a place that's hiding itself. The society itself might not know of its existence, and it may be cloaked in a way.
Could be.
How do we wish to proceed, gentlemen? Everybody seems very creeped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
We're
don't
gonna
know if
park
we
and
should.
get to it.
Yeah, I mean, do we jump into this and risk missing the rendezvous tomorrow, or what is it?
Can we access the alley behind the building from sort of the other side?
Yes, driving around, you get the feeling that you could probably sneak down an alleyway on the other side of the block and then make your way to the back of this building, of the Sunshine House.
Okay.
Definitely.
Right.
I'm
wanna
not
do
one
that?
for skulking about or breaking into things, but we should probably get to it.
Do we want to wait a little more till more people are asleep? Or do we want to try an actual front door approach?
It's up to you guys.
Well, we could see if Pantsman is in. Z, you were sent to meet with him. They didn't stipulate a particular time or date.
No, he actually said, as soon as possible. So I suppose I could knock on the door and see if he is here.
I'll stand by you.
All right.
We want to do a two-pronged approach. Have you guys go in the front door, and maybe the other two kind of check out other ways.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
So the party's splitting up.
I don't know.
Who's going where and when?
I'm with Z. We're gonna
Okay.
go a knocking.
Murphy and Z
You
are
think,
going to take
Vesper,
the
what do you wanna
direct
do?
approach.
I think we should stay together.
All right. I have no problem staying together.
No, when you say stay together, you mean all four of you, or do you mean?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to split this up.
Okay. All right. So the four of you are gonna go up.
I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense either. I mean, hey, what's up? We're four
Right.
dudes.
You want
But
the two of us maybe stay in the car as backup.
That's a good idea. Rather than create some issue with breaking in or trespassing, just lay low.
we'll be on our octocoms.
That's right.
But
I like
anyone
that.
needs anything.
Our octocoms. I like it.
Cool.
I like that a lot.
Compass.
Okay. So then we've got Murphy and Z, who are both heading up the stairs. They're going to go knock on the front door while Vesper and Dietrich wait in the car.
And I think it might be prudent for us to like do a walk around, not necessarily like sneak in the back or something, but
Mhm.
just take a look in the alleys and stuff, and just to keep an eye on the perimeter. But
Verify if
keeping-
there is a back door.
yeah, but then like our base of operation will be in the front.
Okay.
It's fine. I'm good
So
with that.
what's the order of operations here? Will you two kind of go out and scout while they're going up at the exact same time? Or
That sounds good.
I think so.
okay. So in that case, let's do this. Let's actually have we'll go with Murphy and Z first. So stepping up the stairs, you immediately get the sense that there is something a little bit different about this building. This building is wet, looking up and down the street. The other buildings appear to have this kind of dry facade. It's cold, it's dry air, but this building in particular, it's almost as if someone had covered it in just a fine mist, or as if it had been raining just a few minutes before. And stepping up step by step, you make your way to the double doors, which look like they are the sort of doors that would be open during the day, but perhaps after 6 p.m. or after 5 p.m. they're closed. And there are a pair of knockers on the front. And I assume we're knocking.
We'll
Yeah.
grab those knockers and make some noise.
Yeah.
All right, then. As soon as you're clanking away, You can kind of hear a shuffling on the other side, and then a few latches are thrown, and then the door opens, and peeking out at the two of you, Murphy, I believe you're the one that immediately recognizes the nurse from our very first episode. The one that was trying to help.
At Fenway.
At Fenway.
Right.
She takes a moment. I'm sorry. Can I help you, gentlemen? Are you here to see someone? It's very late.
Yes, sorry for the lateness of the evening. We're actually here. My name is Ezekiel Brewster, seminarian. This is Francis Murphy. We're looking to see if by just some odd chance, Mr. Humbert Pantsman might be available.
Well, I'm not sure, but Mr. Pantsman is often here till late hours. I could check for you. Have I seen you two before? Do I know you both from somewhere?
You look familiar, but I can't quite place you. And I'm gonna turn and cough and trigger my octopus. And just say she's from Fenway. She was there when all of this started for us.
What was that you said?
Oh, nothing. I just scratchy throat.
Ah. Well, would you like me to go check and see if Mr. Pantsman is here? He often stays late. I can't guarantee this, but I can check.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
It's great. I'm so sorry. You'll have to be patient with me. Ordinarily, the guard would be on duty, but he doesn't seem to have come to work for today. So I'm actually the school nurse, and I'm taking care of things for tonight. But please come inside. Come inside. And she opens a doorway and kind of ushers you into what's kind of like just an entryway, where there is another grand set of double doors, and you can kind of see that there is in the wall there's a small window. It's a sort of reception area where you would enter and kind of give your name and ask for, if you're a visitor, you would get permission to go inside. She shows you to a couple of seats, and then clip-clops by her heels echoing on the marble back around a corner and disappears for just a moment. And you can hear a doorway open. You can hear the sounds of knocking. You can hear her talking to someone in hushed whispers. And then she comes. Is there something you want to do while you're kind of alone here? You have like 30
Just
seconds.
survey the surroundings. See, are there any other exits other than the one she went to? What does it look like? The room look like?
So basically, you're looking down a very long hallway, which seems to run pretty deep into the building, and it opens up into this very large kind of reception area. The floors are made from they're made out of brick, and there's a mixture of like marble in there as well. It's kind of dimly lit. It looks like it's on its evening lighting scheme or late night lighting scheme. A lot of the lights are off. There are tables kind of about, and maybe on a few tables you see like books, textbooks, and pencils and papers and things like that might have been left by children or perhaps students if that's what they were doing.
Is there like a reception desk? Anything that might have?
You're sitting right next
business
to it.
card.
Like you're sat down. You are sat down at that area, the window where there are, you're in a couple chairs, and you could kind of turn around and just sort of peek in there.
Yeah, I just want to see if there are any business cards, literature, anything like that.
Go ahead and make a roll for this. Business cards and literature. Looking at the desk just quickly, you just see a lot of pads of paper and pens and things like that. Nothing important, but if you want to get something out of this.
Sure. So I actually have a skill. It's called foraging / hunting. Doesn't seem exactly the kind of foraging, but maybe the skills. But
Judges will allow it
I
unless it's
also
something
have
else.
well, I also have a sneaking skill, which maybe that will allow me to do it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll use intellect effort, and yeah, that's probably it.
Okay, go ahead and make your roll.
I rolled a 10.
With a 10, you managed to grab what looks to be a very thick kind of, I want to call it a brochure, but it's more like a magazine style. It's a publication that's put out by the house. Just looking at it really quickly, it just says it's Sunshine Monthly, is what it's called, and you can kind of see on the cover there is an image of Humbert Pantsman opening his arms wide and just smiling next to some of the children that are staying at his place. And you can kind of see some of the headlines are about the goings on around the what we would call an orphanage for now. Are you hiding this as she comes back around the corner?
I'm gonna fold it and kind of stick it down my shirt.
Got it. Murphy, what are you up to in the same 30 to 60 second period?
I'll just wander a little ways down the hall to observe, see if what their doors are, what the layout of this particular area is, see if anything sniffs unusually.
Stepping down the floor, your footsteps echo in this empty hall as you go deeper into it. And I assume this is kind of like following the path that the nurse just went down. Is that correct?
Yeah, with a casual loping limp.
Just sort of looking around.
Pacing almost, but not.
As you move ahead, you sort of peek around the corner, and what you see is that she's sort of leaning into a doorway where there's a light on, and she's talking very briefly to someone that's there, but you can't really make out what she's saying. You hear, Mr. Pantsman in there. You hear words like available in there. And then you hear like some mumbling from whoever it is that's sitting at that desk. And then, unless you're doing something, that person starts to... Are you doing anything?
No, I'm not. I'm going to slowly shift back towards
this person starts to stand up, and they look like actually another nurse that would ordinarily be on duty, perhaps. And she gets up, and she's a little mousy looking. She's younger looking than the other nurse. And she kind of steps out, looks past the first nurse that had actually spoke to you, locks eyes on you. That first nurse turns as if a little bit startled that you had followed her in there. And then that mousy nurse just sort of continues down the hall and then makes her way up a set of stairs. I'm so sorry. Mr. Pantsman is here. I'm told that he's upstairs. And so Priscilla is going to go get him for you right now. Would you like to perhaps have a seat? And she sort of gestures back toward where you really should be sitting.
No, sure, certainly. Yep. I'll head back to the main lobby.
No problem. And so with that, let's cut to Mr. Dietrich and Mr. Evenwing. So how are we doing this, gentlemen?
I'm going to just take a stroll down the old alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
You said there are two. Do you want to go together or do you want to split up?
Let's split up even further. And we won't rest until Frank is in the basement.
That's it.
All right. So
that works for me. I'll go right, you go left.
Yep.
Wonderful. So we're splitting the party one more time. Every game master loves this.
Fractal.
So let's decide. We'll take Dietrich first. So we'll just say, you said you're going right?
Mm-hmm.
So proceeding down the alleyway, it's that weird sort of sensation, or not sensation, it's that weird look the skin of the building. And I say skin with a purpose. I mean, it doesn't look, now that you're up close to it, it no longer looks brick. It looks living and organic. And even as you kind of get closer to it, it almost looks like there are veins running up and down. And what you realize seemed like breathing before now seems more like a pulse, steadily moving through the building. And looking along the windows as you go deeper into the alleyway, you see that they're all dark, except for one that has a very gentle glow, which you realize is not a glow here in Boston. It's a glow probably from Vagaver. And it's one of the last windows at the ground level. So, in other words, it looks like it's basement level.
It's basement level. Okay. All right. I'll kind of approach and see if I can peek my way in.
So stepping up to it, you do get the impression that you need to be cautious now at this point, because it seems like if there's someone inside, they may be able to see you as clearly as you might be able to see them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to visualize this, I guess, for myself. The effect of seeing the Vagaverse side, it's not a translucent effect on the wall. It's just, it seems like the room containing this light happens to be on Vagaverse. So is there still wall separating us? So it's still, they have to see me through the window?
There appears to be a window where the glow is coming through. So this room is, you're assuming, in Vagaver. And the glow is making its way through a window in Vagaver, which is also a window here on Earth. So in other words, the two are kind of overlaid on top of one another.
Right.
Murphy, what was that? Was that a torch?
Nothing to see.
Nothing
here.
at all. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Won't make a return.
Okay, yeah, then I will make sure I stay to the side and kind of, peek in and try to obscure their view of me as much as I can.
Go ahead, and as you turn your head there, you start to see what's very clearly some sort of organic forms that are glowing on the inside, and you can kind of see, again, as you're moving slowly, what might be feet. And if you want to get a better look, you're really going to have to jam your head in there and make yourself very visible.
Is the window you said is sort of at the ground level because it's looking down into?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to take it some time, we can go to Vesper.
Yeah, move on to Vesper. Let me think about this for a second.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm scaring my players to the point of paralysis. Okay, Vesper, you head down the left alleyway, and as you go, you make your way, and you see that succession of dark windows at ground level as you proceed. And looking at this building, you don't see the Vagaverian part of the building. What you see is the weird Bostonian parts, and the building is wet. It's bizarre.
Does it still look like this darkness up close?
It does look like that dark. As you get closer, that darkness almost kind of blurs together, and looking really closely, that wetness is almost like a sheen that's sitting on top of the darkness.
I kind of can't help myself as I'm walking past. I'm going to reach out and graze it with my fingers.
As you touch it, you get that feeling like you got when you were touching the tiny little mouths before.
I will immediately bring my hand back
Yes.
and wipe it like this as I'm looking about. And is there any evidence of doorways or that energy that I'm seeing?
Make a roll for this and tell me how you want to do it. What do you want to use? Which stat?
Well, I guess I'll just go with intellect. I'm not sure my see-through tricks, lies, deceptions, and illusions might aid me here.
I would allow it. I mean, after all, that is an earthbound kind of skill, but on the other hand, you've been moving back and forth between here and Vagaverse, so I'll absolutely allow it.
I'll rely on that and my newfound sight, and I'm going to apply a level of effort, and I'm specialized in that skill, so that should be 4.
Yeah. Go ahead and make your roll.
7. Very popular number.
So, with a 7, what you get is near the back end of the building, on one of the final windows, there is an incredibly dark, lack of light that is covered in a wet sheen. And it's almost, the feeling that you get is that this black lack of light has been placed here almost as if it were a shield, to shield your view, or those with a view that you may have, from seeing inside.
As I'm going to approach it, but not really try and cross its edge or thresholds or anything. And I want to try and do what Langdon was saying and think about this doorway and try and see if it presents its options to me or the fact that it is.
So go ahead and tell me how you're going to do this. How does this occur?
I'm going to go up to perceive it and get its mental, like that outline of it in my mind. And think about its relation in Vagaver to where I'm standing now, perhaps. And just the options of where it might lead.
Okay. Go ahead, and are you applying any effort for this, or?
Yeah, I will. I think this is something new enough that I'd want to, and as soon as I find it kind of difficult from just standing in front of it, that I would want to do that. So I will apply a level of effort.
Okay.
And then I will roll a die.
Go right ahead. Let's see.
15.
You get the feeling that you are standing at the edge of a tremendous drain. And if you were to step any closer to the building, you might fall down this drain and be taken, essentially, to Vagaver. You can feel the rush like rapids or like water. It's almost like you're standing at the edge of a waterfall. And if you were to take a step closer, you would fall into the waterfall and disappear.
I immediately, just without meaning to, just a kind of a low growl of fright, like through the octocom, and I take 2 quick steps back, and just over that I'll say, like, this place is far more ill than I had originally thought. We should do our business quickly. And I'm going to head straight back to the street.
So what are you up to, Dietrich? Let's just say that you hear that at the exact moment when you were trying to decide whether or not to sort of fully peek in there.
I am not going to peek in.
Okay.
I want to continue and make sure I get to the back and see what is in the back. There's any doors or other windows in the back.
Walking around to the back, what you see are loading docks, which is a little bit strange. And looking at these loading docks, it's not what you had been expecting from the outer facade of the building. This is something that probably has been added, and there's as if to sort of, and you don't even have to roll for this, but as if to sort of confirm this, turning the corner fully, what you see is an area that looks like clearly it was rebuilt recently for the sole purpose of loading and unloading something. And there's like kind of a deck where like a truck would back up, and then like, you know, things would be offloaded.
The alleyway is clearly big enough to have a truck go in here.
It looks like it could come in from another side.
Yeah. Okay.
And there doesn't appear to be anyone here. I mean, you'd really have to take a look around to know for certain what you're looking at, but
yeah, let me take a good solid look.
okay, so tell me how you're going to do this. Looking around, you see that upper deck where like the loading and unloading happens. You see like kind of a flickering, a brand new sort of electrical light bulb that's up there like flickering on and off. But it doesn't appear like all the windows, it looks like they're darkened and there's no one at home. What are you looking for here exactly?
I want to see if there's any boxes or other materials in the loading dock waiting to either be loaded or just recently unloaded.
Mm-hmm.
To see if there is any, I guess, station, office that might have information.
Yeah.
And then how many doors go into the main building itself.
Okay. So go ahead and tell me. I'm going to count that actually as a bit of an asset because I see it as sort of like you're focused on what you're doing. Anything else you want to do to like ease the task at all?
Yeah, I am curious, which gives me a free level of effort on perception in an area I've rarely or never been.
Okay.
And then I will go ahead and use 1 point of level of effort on intellect.
Okay, so that's 3, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead and make your roll.
Ooh, that's only a 4. I'm still not used to these goggles.
Looking around, the only thing you can tell is that it looks like there's a lot of work that takes place here on a daily basis, and there's a lot of unloading and unloading. You see like little splinters of wood and like nails and things like that where crates have been popped open. You see packing straw, things like that, but nothing that really stands out to you.
No actual crates or anything there?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, actually, yeah, I'll say that there are some crates, but they're all empty.
Okay.
Let's go back to Murphy and Z, who are in the hallway at the entranceway. And now Priscilla, the nurse, has gone up the stairwell and sort of disappeared, perhaps to fetch the person that you're looking for, Pantsman. And at this point, The other nurse, who still hasn't introduced herself to you, hasn't said anything to you, just sort of ushers you back to the beginning, or to the front of the entranceway. Mr. Pantsman is here, and he will be down shortly. I swear I've seen you before. But perhaps it's my imagination.
Yeah. I can't place it presently.
Mr. Murphy works at quite a few establishments as a guard, so maybe your paths have crossed once before.
She snaps her fingers. I have seen you before. At the park. Isn't that right?
Was that Fenway?
Yes. Fenway Park. I remember the incident with the man that had been hit on the head.
That was you. You slapped my hand.
That's right. I do remember that. You were interfering with with the procedure. I was trying to help that man. My goodness, what happened to you? I remember there was an incident there. And she starts to sort of back up. You both disappeared at that moment.
We left the game.
No, you disappeared at that moment. I do remember that much. And just to sort of refresh your memories, I'm not sure how much my players remember, but does anyone remember what happened at that game? Our very first game?
We kind of, like, time stopped.
Yeah.
And then we went through a false wall into a basement room. Yeah.
Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, you assume to the people around you, you probably disappeared. And now she's backing up, quite frightened. What happened back there? What was that? And you can hear the footsteps of someone as they're making their way in this direction. And there's kind of the quick footsteps that you assume are Priscilla the nurse. And then there's another set of someone else.
I am going to attempt to persuade her. My language will be that we're not quite sure what happened ourselves, and we're on a journey to figure that out. And I will use, if I need to roll, just to try and calm this woman down, I am now specialized in persuasion.
So you can work your magic. Okay, let's do this then. So specialized in persuasion. So you've got 2 levels there of easing the task.
And I'm going to
anything else?
See if you will allow this, Game Master.
We'll see.
But I will use as a what is it called? A tool or a
set?
Yep.
Asset.
An asset.
If you recall, while we were ghosted, I went through her hand.
Yes,
and
I do
saw
recall
all
this.
kinds of images.
That is correct. Nice.
So I am going to try to draw upon some of those thoughts and memories to couch this in a way that she might
be persuaded.
Understand.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a 19.
Nice. So, just to let everybody know in the audience, a roll of a 19 is on a non-combat roll is considered to be a minor effect. In combat, it would deal 3 additional points of damage, but for someone that rolls a 19 outside of combat, they are awarded a minor effect. So tell me, I'm going to give you the convincing here, so you've got that, but would you like something else on top of that? What's the minor effect? And let me just sort of throw this out there as well. I'm going to allow a little bit of you as a player to sort of intervene here in the story. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very dangerous. I'm a professional game master. Do not try this at home. I'd like to allow you to intervene here in the story. How would you like to throw a wrench into the works with this minor effect? And you don't have to, it's up to you. Could be whatever you wish.
Well, I don't know where this particular woman stands in the scheme of things. We don't even know if Sunshine House, although it feels ill, we're not sure of anything. But perhaps the connection is so deep that she actually becomes not necessarily enamored or an ally, but feels some sort of connection and is willing to advocate on our behalf.
Got it. I like this. And so for a moment, it looks as if she's actually, as she's backing up, she's about to scream. Scream bloody murder. There's fear in her eyes, and her eyes begin to water. And as you look past her shoulders, the two figures that are emerging are, first of all, Priscilla the nurse, and second of all, for a moment, as you blink, you see Mr. Coatsworth III, but then you realize you're looking at Humbert Pantsman as he approaches, clapping his hands and smiling. And then the expression on the nurse's face is one of utter terror that just suddenly changes to something more like sympathy. And she turns to look at Mr. Pantsman, whose hands go from tightly knit together to outstretched, with his fingers, all five on both hands, completely outstretched as if to take a piece of you. And she says, "Oh, Mr. Pantsman, I thought these were the ones, but they're not." And Mr. Pantsman stops her. "Please. Oh, please. Praise his name. I have seen you. I have seen these two. I know who they are, and I know who sent these two to me tonight. I prayed for this, and he sent them to me." And she works. "No, sir, no, sir. I assure you, these are not. I made a mistake. I thought they were. Please. They are not who I thought they were. It is my fault. Please don't. I am telling you. These are the two I prayed for. I prayed, and I was looking for these two, and he sent them. He delivered them unto me." And there's an argument that starts to break out between the two of them. And things don't look very good for you.
See, this
as
is rather peculiar.
Two doors behind you slam shut.
What?
Doors to the front.
The doors to the front. The latches fall down. And the nurse, "No, these are not the ones." She fights with him.
Is it getting physical?
No, I'm so sorry. She fights with him verbally. They spar. And eventually, he begins to calm down. And it takes a while. And it's pretty nerve-wracking, and you're still left with the question of exactly how those doors slam shut behind you. And then Mr. Pantsman gathers himself. I'm so sorry about that. I think I thought you were the ones, but perhaps I need to pray a little bit more. Who are you two gentlemen? And how can we help you this evening? And she looks to the both of you, and there's still terror on her face, but it's sort of she's sort of angled herself so that Pantsman can't see her.
I want to pull out my business card and hand it to him.
You pull out the business card and hand it to him.
Mm-hmm.
He takes the card from you, and he hasn't looked at it yet, but he's looking at you. He looks at the card. There's a very long pause, and he smiles. Mr. Brewster, it is very nice to make your acquaintance. The Vice Rector has spoken highly of you, but has said that you need perhaps a little bit of work to cleanse your soul. Is that correct?
That's correct. The Vice Rector sent me. He said that you would be waiting for me. Here to do maybe a little bit of charity work, and I brought Mr. Murphy here. Would also like to help the children.
I'm a bit of a lost soul.
Mr. Murphy, how old are you? I don't think we ever actually really talked about that.
I better check my character sheet.
It's been 10 games and the Game Master hasn't asked once.
No,
But
I'm
27.
Right.
I'm 38 years old.
You're a little old to be a wayward soul. Mr. Murphy, was it? But of
Yes,
course,
sir.
a little bit of work has always been good for the soul. And we can put you to work here at the Sunshine House. Thank you, Mr. Brewster, for bringing your friend. Did you happen to bring any of those other friends that the Vice Rector told me about?
They're not here right now.
I like that.
Right now.
And I'm a priest. I can't lie.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
No, I doesn't.
I want to. I don't know how I would do it physically or if it was just mentally, but I want to allow this conversation to be heard by TBD and Vesper.
With a little bit of experimentation and kind of like, you can get that. And now Vesper and Mr. Dietrich, TBD, you're also hearing this. And let's go back to you two at this point. What are you both up to?
So I just walked straight out of the alley, and basically as I leave the alley at the edge of the building, that's sort of the moment that as I take a step out, Mars is right at my side, if anyone happened to be watching. And
did you want to have sent Mars on a little mission, or?
I'm probably not yet.
Okay.
Because I especially don't want her to go by this place I just saw. But I just want to stop right on the sidewalk and just inquire and just be like, what was that? Did you feel that energy? Right there, it was drawing me in. And just see if she has any insight.
Looking at Mars, she doesn't look like she's very happy to be here. And she looks like she's hesitating to go close to the building. And she keeps kind of looking down at the foundations of the building. And what you picture in your head is that she's kind of, perhaps, and she's always been tuned into these things, she's probably seeing that waterfall, that sinking waterfall of something that is coursing like a well moving in reverse through the earth and down deep into the depths beneath Boston. But Mars just doesn't really look very happy to be here.
I'm looking for TBD if he's emerged back from.
Mr. Dietrich, have you come back around the side?
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely come back around right before I leave the loading dock area. I just want to see the crates that are still there, if there's any writing on it at all.
Oh. Yes, there is. Yes, indeedy. One of the crates, it's disappointingly English. And the crate says Purity Distilling Company.
Just what the orphans need.
Yeah. Purity Distilling Company. Yes.
Okay, is there an address or anything on it?
Yes,
just like the name and logo.
There is an address on there. It's I don't have it on me, but it's on the north end, not too far from the Old North Church, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And then gaining that info, then I will head back.
Yeah, I'll rendezvous with the car, and we can share our stories.
Yep.
And I want to send Mars back towards what TBD had found, to be just the innocent cat that's walking by to take a peek and see what she might see in there. But with expressly forbidden to go. Not that she would need it, but to
go near it or like get into a dangerous position.
Yeah.
All right then. So you send her into the back, and she kind of trots off and does her thing where she disappears. But interestingly, you can actually now see her, Mr. Dietrich.
Okay.
Or you can actually see her. Well, I assume that she could be seen before. Is that true? Okay, so I'm sorry. Cancel that order.
She just seems to appear and disappear at will.
So with that, let's go back to Murphy and Z. Mr. Pantsman seems to have taken over the conversation now, and he steps up to the two of you, placing his arms across your shoulders. You gentlemen look like you are ready to work. Are you not ready to do work? He's waiting for your answer.
Here for, right?
Excellent. It's a little bit late tonight, but I'd like you both back here early tomorrow morning, and we'll start your educations.
What education did you have in mind?
Well, we make things here. We've been, as of late, making shoes for the soldiers overseas. I think it would be very beneficial. A little bit of hard work and elbow grease never hurt anyone, and it's always, like I said, it's been good for the soul. I think you should be here at 7:30 a.m. Can you two fellas do that? And even you, Mr. Murphy, you look like the sort that sleeps in late.
You've got me pegged, sir.
He doesn't laugh.
You say shoes. Would the children also be in need of coats? Coats worth their weight in gold, perhaps?
Please leave us. The nurse looks quite afraid when you say that, and she shuffles off, looking over her shoulder. And he leans across the two of you. His hands now seem longer. They
Watch
hover
out for
over
dogs.
both of you. And he simply gestures, and the doors open behind you. 7:30 a.m., gentlemen. Now. I need to get back to praying. And it's clear
right.
that it's time for you to exit.
You take a hint. Let's go, Z. And we step outside.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, the doors just close right behind you. And the four of you are left there at the bottom of the stairs.
Hey,
Talk.
you guys made it out. Wasn't sure that was going to happen.
It was very peculiar. He did not take well to Z playing with the words Coatsworth.
Mm,
No, there's a connection between the two of them. If indeed it is two of them, he looked an awful lot like our Coatsworth. I'm not convinced they're not the same.
Mon,
I think our original one would have attacked immediately, but
I'm not a clever man, but was he fooling around with good for the soul or good for the soul? He's talking about shoes. Just weird.
What kind of meeting did you boys have in there?
I'm not entirely sure.
This place is evil and ill, and we'll be best to move away from it now.
totally agree.
Yeah, to the carpet car.
To carve.
I don't know about you, Z, but I don't have any intention of being back here at 7:30.
I'm still mulling it over, Murph. It might not be a bad idea for us to be here at 7:30 and keep him here till 11.
Ah, split the party for the
Once
next
again.
session.
Correct. Because if we're here at 11 and he's here at 11, who will be at the public library?
That's true. It would have been good to have TBD's eyes on all that just transpired.
Well, I can say for certain, just by the reaction he got, and the nurse knows something too, because as soon as I said Coatsworth, she got scared out of her mind.
Yeah, we'll never get her out of there.
Yeah. So there's definitely a connection, and this building is wet. Unlike anything else on the block, it's clearly Vagavarian. I don't need TBD's glasses to know that. Very, very strange things happening. So we have 2 scheduled rendezvous. We just have to figure out how we handle them.
All right, then. So I think this is probably a good time to end tonight's session. For all of you watching at home, thank you very much. If you liked what you saw, please do like and subscribe. We are taking a short break. We have Christmas coming up next week, and then New Year's after that. But for those of you that are watching live, it will be a couple weeks. We'll be back, I believe, on January 6th, Wednesday, January 6th. But for those of you watching this as a recording, you can just hop to the next episode right now. Thank you all very much for joining us. We will see you in our next adventure.